Good morning, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the first of our interview series. Now, today, I'm delighted to welcome someone that probably doesn't need a great deal of introduction, but for anyone who hasn't come across Roland Frasier yet in their journey, Roland is a serial entrepreneur who's been part of more than 1,000 lifetime acquisitions, exits, and deal advisories. His portfolio has more than 6 billion in annual sales, and he's the co-founder of 6 different Inc. magazine fastest growing companies. Welcome, Roland Frasier.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
Really pleased to have you here. You couldn't make this summit a couple of months ago because you've had all sorts of things going on. But I guess before we dive into some of that, for anyone who hasn't come across you yet, who is Roland Frasier? I gave you a little bit of a summary there, but I'm sure I didn't do it justice.
I think that's good. I've been an entrepreneur pretty much all my life, kind of into the world of buying and selling things. I guess the oldest one would be back when I was 18, buying and selling real estate as a real estate agent, and then doing syndications and putting deals together for developments and houses and things like that. Then getting into buying companies and working with one of the big investment banking houses in New York, and not working for them, working with them, and in doing leverage buyouts, and then just really realizing that you could marry the creative financing that was happening in real estate with what what was traditionally happening in the way that they did acquisitions. And because I kind of came up when leverage buyouts were very hot, it was, I learned around how do you use a company's assets to pay for itself to finance the deal. And so that kind of set my mindset with, you don't really need a ton of capital to do it. And then as I did more and more deals, people would come to me and say, could we have you come into the deal and you help kind of structure things or advise or work on the exit or whatever, and we'll give you a piece of the deal. And so I started doing what I call consulting for equity. And that is really an evolution of real estate and creative financing strategies with real estate into acquisitions using debt and assets of the company, into much more creative acquisitions, kind of marrying all of those different things to acquire companies without the need to have a ton of capital, and then into consulting for equity. And now I kind of do all of those things.
Excellent. So you're pretty busy then. I get that.
Yeah, lots of deals. It's fun. I mean, it's really cool because I say no to more deals than I say yes to, and I think that's one of the cool things is the longer that you're in, every deal that is a not now is pipeline, and that pipeline just builds and builds and builds. And so, a lot of people say, I don't know how to get started and find deals. I can't find any deals. It's really easy as long as you're just out there talking to people. They will come, and you can, I have systematic outreach that we can talk about too. But really, it's pipeline. The key is to be talking to as many people as you can and let as many people as possible know what you're interested in. And then every time you talk to somebody and it's not a deal for you, it's potentially either a deal for somebody else to refer, or it's a consult where you can go in and help them get ready to be ready for a deal, or it's pipeline.
Love that. Yeah. So it's this, I guess, this idea of having or keeping your options open. There are opportunities everywhere. So it might not be right for you, could be right for somebody else.
Yeah, there's opportunity in everything.
Yeah. How many deals do you typically get sent your way in a week?
Oh gosh, in a week, if it depends on, I have tried to constrain the flow so that I've got people that pre-qualify. So what I see is less than what I would say deal flow is, but probably 40, 50 deals a week.
And you mentioned something which was actually I was going to talk about, which is if someone is procrastinating, they don't know where to start. What's the one piece of advice you could give them? And you mentioned about deal flow, get out and talk, and you said you've got perhaps some strategies. Should we dive into those?
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing is to understand what you are looking for. is really important. So I'm big on acquisition criteria. And so that means really at the most basic level, what kind of profit do you need the company that you're looking to get involved with to have to make it worth your while? And for different people, it's different things. So for me right now, I don't really want a company that's not doing $1 million in profit. And profit can be a couple different things. We use SDE, or seller discretionary earnings. If it's an owner operated company, we use EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. If it is a professionally managed company. But the bottom line is, I want to know what the bottom line is. How much cash flow do I have to work with in terms of, which is different than SDE or EBITDA, by the way. But how much cash is coming off the company that I have to work with? If it's not $1 million a year, $1 million a year is like $80,000 a month, basically, right? 80,000 a month gives me enough to have something for myself and somebody maybe that I bring into the deal, and also have money for growth, optimization, professionalization. Those are really the three primary things I'm going to do once I get into a company. I'm going to try to get it to sell more and at a higher margin. I'm going to have it work a little bit better and more efficiently and effectively. And I'm going to try to put the people in so that it can run without me or anybody on my team, and be ready for an investor or buyer to come in and take it over. So I know now then for my acquisition criteria, it's got to have at least $1 million in profit, and it's got to have some sort of team. So my rule is, for my companies, it needs to be 10 or more people involved. If there's 10 people or more involved in the company as on the org chart, then that means that there is probably management, because generally when you get to 5 or 7 people, you start to have somebody that's going to be looking over those people. And if I say 10, that's a good criteria. Outside of that, I don't really care about the company. I'm pretty industry agnostic. There are some industries like super heavily regulated that I don't generally prefer. I don't generally prefer inventory businesses, because that adds an extra layer of financing and and storage and people that I just as soon not deal with. But I don't say no to those. I do have them in the portfolio. So that's the first thing. Know what you want, so you know what to say either no or not now to. And I generally don't ever say no. I say not now. I say that's really doesn't meet my acquisition criteria right now. But if something changes so that this thing that it's not meeting right now happens, then I'd love to to stay in touch and and let me know, or I can refer it out to somebody else. So that's the precursor to me to any outreach, because you need to know what to ask for, or you won't get anything, or you'll get everything, right? And you'll just get distracted. So I think you start there. Now I know what I want. Great. Okay, well, how do I get deal flow? Well, you need to tell everybody, right? Tell everybody, meaning you need to be public with the fact that you're looking for this. Almost always, one of the very first things that somebody asks when they meet you is, so what do you do? And to me, I'm an investor. I buy companies. Currently I'm generally looking for companies that are doing about $1 million or more in profit, have 10 or more employees, and have been in business for at least 3 years. If you know anything like that, I definitely love to hear. And then you become very interesting to people, because you might buy their company. You're definitely more interesting than the person that's anal expressing dog's glands. It's just you're going to be more interesting than most people, and so then people want to talk to you, and they're a lot of them become referral people for you. They're, oh, well, my cousin, sister's nephew's brother has a hotel business where they do consulting for hotels, and they're looking to sell it right now. Is that something you'd be interested in? Maybe. I'd love to talk with them. If you do that and you're putting yourself out there, you should get deal flow. Now, if you, in addition to that, posting on social, put a email signature that says what you're looking for, tell everybody every time that you meet somebody and they say, what do you do? Tell them that you're an investor. Now we get to, okay, well, how do I do bulk personalized outreach? There, it's taking the acquisition criteria that you've got and then use a service. We use Zoom Info. We have a subscription there so that we can basically do sorts. And we do a sort and say we want companies that are doing generally 2 million or more in top line, because they could be operating at a 50%. They don't generally tell you what the profits are. So I'm going to say, 2 million is kind of a top line criteria for me when I'm doing a list. And then I'm basically just going to sort. Maybe I'm going to look for a particular region. Maybe I'm looking for auto repair shops right now, and I'll put it in, and there's 100,000 of them. Great, in the United States alone, right? So now I say, okay, well, we're really looking in the Southwest region right now. Let me do that, and let me, be sure that it's got the 10 employees and that it's been in business for 3 years, and maybe I'll find 10 or 12,000. Now that becomes my pool that I'm going to farm. So I'm going to basically take the contact information and export it into a CRM. And now I'm going to start reaching out to those people. I'm going to use direct mail. I'm going to use ringless voicemail. I'm going to use text messages. I'm going to do everything I can to farm that list that I've identified. And you will for sure have conversations if you're doing that. So then the conversations that I have are generally around, have you ever thought of selling? And we have some automated AI phone call stuff that we use now as well, through a service called Air AI that will actually have a live AI voice call with people to qualify them for selling businesses. And that's really, really been a game changer, because we can make 10,000 calls in 5 minutes. And all of those calls then are having conversations, but it's just one agent. I don't have to have a whole team of people doing that. Then the ones that qualify, that say that they're interested, we can follow up with and have one-on-one conversations with live humans.
That's amazing. So that AI has the conversation for you to start with.
It's pretty cool.
That's incredibly cool, Roland. Love it. What do you think? Because when you say it like that, it sounds super easy, but there are a lot of people out there that they struggle to get started. What do you think holds them back?
I think that overwhelm is a big thing. I think that that procrastination is a big thing. That it's very easy. I think the easiest thing in the world is to get knowledge about something, and the hardest thing in the world is to take action on the knowledge. So we can hear, oh, you have to, I have to get a list. Okay, well, God, I have to get a list, but let me find out instead the 72 ways I can finance the deal. Well, the 72 ways you can finance a deal are great, but if it all starts with having the conversation. So more than just continually accumulating knowledge, you actually have to take the action. Now, maybe you don't know what action to take because you're like, there's so much. I need to know how to finance a deal, and I need to know how to, grow a business and exit and close and find an attorney and all this other stuff. You don't need to do any of that stuff until you have a deal. So I would say you've got to prioritize and say, if you're overwhelmed, then reduce the field of potential actions and say, the only thing that I'm going to do is the first thing that gets me to the next step. The first thing that gets me to a next step is to have a deal. How do I find a deal? I need to talk to people. Who do I talk to? I need to identify who that is. So I need to have my acquisition criteria so I know who I want to talk to, although I'm going to tell you to talk to everybody and tell them you're an investor. Then you're going to have to take some action to do more direct outreach. The faster you want to go, the more you need to move towards systematized bulk outreach, right? And if you are overwhelmed and you just need to take that first step, that would be get the list. Once you have the list, then it's get the list outreached to, right? Well, how can I do that? Well, you can go on, Fiverr or Upwork or any of those places and find somebody that can set it up. If you don't have somebody, you can do it yourself. Although ultimately doing all that stuff yourself is going to be too tedious. So I think it's better to find somebody if you can, but at least just get on the phone and start making phone calls and talk to people, right? That's so critical to take that first step. If it's fear and not overwhelm, then and in not knowing what to do, and now you're just like afraid to take the next step, which I think happens to a lot of people. The only way that I have seen to get past that seems to be effective is to understand that you have to take this next step to get towards the goal that you want to have, and talk to people and maybe have a trial conversation. We built a GPT for Chat GPT where you can have a conversation on your phone with a AI seller. And so then you have the conversation and it coaches you and basically says, okay, look, here's a script that we give you, right? Now the AI will have a conversation with you based on the script and then give you constructive criticism on how you could have done it better, right? So it'll be like, hey, I'm interested in buying your business. Okay, well, if that's good, that's a good start. But in the way that we generally like to do things, we want to build some rapport first. So you might think about starting, and it coaches you, every step of the way, other than just getting in and doing it and understanding that you'll never get to the place that you want to be if you don't take that next action. That, like, getting past that fear of having conversations, I think, is critical. Now, one other way to do that would be find somebody to partner with that's not afraid to have that part of the conversation. And then you be the back office. You be the person that puts the financing together or does the due diligence or that kind of stuff. And then let your outgoing partner be the person that is going to have the conversations, and because they're not going to be afraid of that. And I do that a lot, not because I'm afraid of it, because I will definitely talk to anybody, but I'm not like what we call a shake and howdy guy. You put me in a room full of 50 people that are business owners that want to sell. I'm not going to talk to any of them. I'm going to hang out in the back of the room until somebody comes up to me. So I have business partners who, and I'm not afraid to talk to them. It's just like, I just don't like it, right? I don't like, hey, my name is Roland and I'm interested in buying business. That's not me. So I have people that are partners of mine, and they talk to people, and then they'll bring them over, and now I can have the conversation with them knowing that they're already qualified and interested. So that'd be another good strategy if you're afraid of that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, partnering with someone that has other strengths. But one thing you didn't mention there, but I know it's a big part of what you do as well, is, of course, if you're procrastinating or fearful, you don't know what to do, mentorship can really help. And that's another part of what you want as well, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We help people, because I've done this so long and so many times, and helped so many other people, that we've got programs that help people do it as well. So I think we've had, the last time I checked, which was 3 or 4 months ago, we had 122,000 people that had gone through our program, and that's really cool. We do it I have a free challenge that people go through and kind of walk them through over 5 days how to do this, and then they can either go out on their own and do it with all the information and tools that I've given them, or if they want to work with us, or partner with us, then those are options too.
Brilliant. Do you have a favorite deal you've ever done?
My favorite deal is usually the one that I'm working on right now. I've got some that truly just made me, you're sitting there, and once in a while you have one of those deals where, as it's happening, you're very excited about it, and then it happens and you kind of can't believe that it worked out like it did. I've definitely had my share of those, and those are really, really fun. But I really like the process of, to me, it's a creative process to put a deal together. And so I like the idea of helping people. It's one of the reasons I teach. It's also one of the reasons that I do the business acquisitions thing, because whether I'm coming in, and I think having that menu of options available to you is really helpful too. So I come into a deal, I'm thinking I'm open to pretty much anything, but my goal really isn't to buy the business, and it's not to partner with the business owner. And it's really sincerely, how can I help this person? Right. And I might be able to help them in a way that's beneficial to me, but that's not my primary focus. I know that if I can help people, it's going to come back to me. I know I'll be able to structure something, and I know that I won't do a deal that's not fair to me any more than I would do a deal that's not fair to somebody else. So everyone that I talk to is a prospective business partner or a acquisition candidate, right? Until I realize I can't help them or they don't qualify. So I don't start out with, like, if you and I meet, I had a taxi driver in London that picked me up on my way to the event that we were doing there. And I'm just talking to him. I'm like, how's it going? Good. What's going on? And he's like, oh, well, I'm really excited right now because I'm studying for my tourist exam. I'm like, what's a tourist exam? And he's like, well, we have to take a test to be able to give tours. And I was like, yeah, like, because I know you guys have a really hard one you've got to know all the streets to be a taxi driver, right? And he's like, oh yeah, and I said, so is a similar thing for giving tours of places? He's, yeah. What I want to do is basically merge that with my taxi business and be able to give tours where people pay me to drive them around and do that. And I was like, that's really awesome. How are you going to go about getting customers? Well, and I just have a conversation with them, and that for sure could have led. He gives me, as I'm getting out of the cab, he gives me his card, and he's like, "Oh man, I'd love to talk to you more about that," because he asked me, what do you do? And I'm like, "Oh, well, interesting that you should ask." Everybody that I talk to, I want to know how I can help them with what they're doing, and very often that will lead to them having something that is interesting that maybe we could work on together, or I just helped them, or they remember me, and 6 months, 2 years, 5 years later, I'll hear from some of them and they'll say, hey, I know that you did this and now I'm at this point. Can you help? Or they'll refer me to somebody. And so my worst possible outcome, like thinking about fear, is I find somebody I can't help. And that's okay, because you can't help everybody. But more often than not, just having conversations with people that I meet in my everyday life, just out there living, and being a human, you're going to interact with people that own businesses. And if you're thinking about how you can help them, very often that's going to turn into a conversation that could lead to an acquisition, a consulting for equity thing, a referral, or something else.
Yeah, I love that. There, as you say, there's no downside to being a good human and seeing if you can help somebody.
Yeah, and I think if you approach it that way too, it takes the fear out of it, because a couple of things happen. One is that when you move from a conversation to selling, many people change personalities. So they're very engaging and authentic when they're having the conversation that's normal, and then when they go to sell and they go to to script, they change their demeanor, they withdraw, that like you can tell that there's a change, and the people you're talking to can tell too. Whereas if the whole time you're not selling, you're simply trying to help, then I think that goes away. And really the conversation more naturally, there's not like, okay, I'm moving from education to sales, right? I'm moving from conversation to sales. It's just the whole thing blends into a smooth, easy process that's not threatening to the prospect, and it's not threatening to you either, because the whole time you're thinking about, how can I help this person, right? So if you go about it that way, I think it can take a lot of that fear of having those conversations out of it, because it's just like, everybody I talk to, my goal is to help them. Okay, what about buying the business? I mean, maybe it'll happen. Well, how will you know? I'll know when I have the conversation. And then the conversation goes like this. It's like, so what do you do? Well, I help people. I'm an investor. I buy businesses. I do consulting for equity where I'll help people grow them and stuff. But that's not really important. Tell me about you. What do you got going on? Well, this is my business, blah, blah, blah. What are you having a big challenge with right now? Oh, man, my biggest challenge is I can't get enough profit margin. I've got good sales and stuff, but things just cost too much. Oh, wow. Well, tell me some of the things you've tried. Tell me some of the things that would be the ultimate solution. And then can I help them with that? Now, when I get to, yes, I can help them, I'm like, well, have you tried this, this, and this? I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about that. That's amazing. Yeah, well, I would definitely think about doing that. That's awesome. Is that something you could help me with? Very often is their question back to me. Well, now I've never sold at all, but now I'm like, absolutely. And then I can go into my general pitch, which is, the way I do that is, and it can either be through an acquisition or consulting for equity. So it's really natural, and I think takes all of the ickiness, out of the process.
Yeah, I love that. Great advice. Was it different in your corporate life? You're talking now about looking to help people, and that's the driver. Was it very different in the corporate world?
It's not for me, because my personality is the same that it's always been. I truly do want to help people, and I know that good will come, because it always has. So when I was, but keep in mind, my corporate, like my acting as an employee life is very, very short. I was an employee when I was a skate rental clerk, and when I was an assistant tennis pro, and when I worked at a water park when I was a kid. But from about 17 on, I have not been an employee of anybody ever. So my corporate world was, I worked at a law firm that I was a partner at. I worked at an appraisal firm that I was a partner at. So I'm not just want to be clear. I don't really have a great deal of corporate employee experience, although I definitely have a lot of experience working in structures like that.
Got you. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So what's next? You've already achieved so much. Where do you want to reach? What's the goal?
It's the thing that I have found throughout my life, which just annoys the heck out of me, is that I am always thinking too small. And so I have done large deals, but there's no reason that I haven't done larger deals. And I've helped people, but there's no reason I haven't helped more people. And I've learned a lot, but I'm still a complete idiot in so many ways. I mean, so many things that I see that I figure out or learn, that I'm like, God, why didn't I know that before? So many insights, so many nuances. So I find what I do and what we do to be so challenging and fulfilling in the doing and the helping, and challenging because I don't know that you could ever know all the things. And certainly, I mean, when I was first doing financing, I really only knew how to get asset-based loans and seller financing and earnouts. And now I've got about 300 ways that I can finance a deal. And so, and that's growing all the time, because the more deals you do, the more situations you run into, the more people you need to help. But now I've got a way bigger, I've got like a container full of arrows in my quiver instead of 3 that I can get deals done with now. And I'm so curious as to, what do I not yet know? And, how do I go and do more deals, help more people, have more fun, and in the process, you make pretty good money.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said something interesting there. What do you do for fun when you're not selling businesses?
I am a recovering attorney, but I'm a recovering musician. I played out in clubs from about 15 to 42. And finally it was like, it's so much fun to me to perform, to play. But unfortunately for music, if you're performing, it's generally at night, and that gets to be old as you start to have families and things like that. But I have a full studio with, I collect synthesizers and keyboards that are rare and hard to find, and I play them and I write music, and that's super fun and fulfilling. And I travel. I've been to 158 countries now. I'm trying to get them all. Now I'm really only down to the very dangerous ones. So I find myself revisiting the ones I like. And those are probably my 2 favorite things to do. I collect wine and tour wineries and do wine tastings and play with my friends in the wine world. And but it's pretty much travel, music, wine, and business. And business is one of my favorite hobbies.
Yeah, I love that. It doesn't feel like work, does it, when you love it so much?
No, there are parts of it I don't like, for sure. Like, I really don't like doing contracts. I have lost, probably the biggest loss of deals I have is that we reach an agreement and I just don't get around to doing the contract. Now I have attorneys that will do them, but some of the deals, you have to like do a first iteration of it, and I'll put it off, and it will definitely cost you money not to stay on top of those things. So I'd say that's one of my big faults, is that, well, like, I like this part. I like talking to you, and you and I figure out something and we agree on it. And then I might be a little slow to get it done. So I'm trying to more and more put that off on other people. But when it's a creative deal, it's harder. So that's a kind of a challenge. But what are you going to
do? How much of a priority do you put on your health? Because you're clearly super busy, all those hobbies, traveling as well, on top of work, what do you do to keep yourself in the best possible shape?
Yeah, I think it's important mentally and physically to stay healthy. So, I exercise and I have my treadmill and do that when I'm home. I don't really do that kind of exercise when I'm traveling, but I travel like in London. I probably walk, 14, 15,000 steps a day because I walk everywhere, and I love cities that have that ability. So when traveling, I do that. When we were in Norway, we were hiking and moving around a lot. So that's my primary thing, is that try to eat healthy, don't have bad habits, don't smoke. I have a lot of people think I drink wine all the time. I probably have a couple glasses of wine once a week on average. And very often not even that. So, which is why I have way too many bottles of wine in my cellar. But yeah, I think it's just, and then same thing, like I'll do crossword puzzles and word games and things like that to try to keep mentally sharp as well, because you got to do all of that stuff. My probably worst habit is I don't sleep as much as I should, because my mind is always going, and it's very hard to turn it off. So that was a focus last year. I was like really wanted to get better about sleep, so I got all of the things that people told me worked to help them sleep, and that's been helping. But I think it's really important that that's a priority. You really don't pay attention to your health enough and take it for granted until it's not there. And then, I've watched multiple times when that's happened to people. So I definitely try to keep that as a high priority.
Yeah, absolutely. Without your health, you haven't really got anything else, have you?
Well, it becomes the most important thing pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sleep, as you mentioned there as well, is kind of like a superpower. Like
It
that's
is.
recharge, recover, replenish. But a lot of people, they still have that kind of work. I'm going to sleep when I'm dead sort of attitude, and you can't do that for very long.
No, and I am very anti-grind. That the whole grind philosophy and mentality of that you've got to grind, no days off, all that kind of stuff. If you're not your best self, if you think about, if you're operating at 50% because you don't have the rest that you need and the ability to recharge, you could really work half as much at 100% and be more happy and more effective and healthier. So, but a lot of people I think are operating at 20% because they're driving themselves too hard and they're too unfocused and scattered and they're not getting enough sleep and they're not taking care of their health. And they're, like even just eating right, just because they're on the go. So they're going to grab fast food and, it's all bad. It's terrible for you. Right. So I think that being aware of operating at peak requires you to recharge. And if you don't allow yourself the time to do that, you're definitely cheating yourself. You could be moving much, much further than the constant grind simply by prioritizing your energy spurts better.
Yeah. Do you find as well when you are traveling that it sort of opens your mind, you have more creativity when you're out of the daily work?
That's a really good question. I don't really have a grind when I'm not traveling. So I think that if anything, it causes you to think differently, and it puts me with different people that maybe I'm not, because I like to travel alone. I enjoy traveling with my family, but I equally, every bit as much as that, enjoy traveling alone. And when I travel alone, I meet a lot more people because I am a social creature. And while I'm not a shake and howdy, I'm not going to all the tables in the restaurant introducing myself. But if these guys are having an interesting conversation over there and they, and some opportunity, raises itself, I'm going to join the conversation. I'm going to talk to all the servers and people I'm with. That can lead to other things where you're talking to people, so like I meet people, people will see that I'm traveling and say, hit me up and say, oh, can I meet you for lunch or something like that? I'm saying, yeah, sure. Like that opening of your mind to other minds and thinking with people or talking with people that think differently, I think definitely keeps the creative juices going for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's easier when you're traveling by yourself, definitely, to meet people, because if there's two of you, you're very sort of insulated. You'll be
Yeah,
chatting to one, and it's hard for someone to break in.
absolutely. Yeah, it kind of forces you to. And if you can get comfortable to have a meal yourself, like if you can get comfortable to have a sit down dinner by yourself, that's really cool, right? That's, you can observe, you can listen, you can learn, you can interact, you can engage. You get way more connected to the place you are than if you are with the person that you're always with, having the conversations that you always have.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay, so I guess to be that person, you've got to be completely comfortable with who you are, which is probably a whole other topic. And we've skirted around sort of fear and things like that. But if there was one attitude or mindset that you think has helped you and would help anyone be successful, what would it be?
I don't know that mine. I don't know that mine is particularly helpful because I just don't care what other people think. So I'm not constrained by, I'm afraid I'm going to be judged by, you and I are going to get together and I'm afraid to say things because you might not like me, or I might look like a fool, or you might find out that I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. I just don't care. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I believe it is a positive thing, but that's a hard thing to tell people. So what I would offer instead is like I don't care if I fail. I know that every time I fail, I'm learning. I'm not afraid of failing. I think the only person that can humiliate you is you, and it's only by how you choose to feel about something. So I don't think that I can be, if I walk out and somebody throws, tomatoes at me and tells me I'm stupid, and then, or like, your last book was dumb, I don't care, right? That doesn't, okay, fine. It's not going to stop me from doing anything else. A friend of mine, though, Todd Herman, wrote a book called, is it your alter ego or something like that? But basically, his whole thing is that there are people who step into other personalities. And so if you think of yourself as an actor and you can create a personality that becomes a role that you step into when you are going into different situations. And he has glasses that have just glass in them, and he puts his glasses on because that helps him step into a different personality that's his professional persona. Beyonce has Sasha Fierce, is a personality that she's made up for herself so that when she goes on stage, she's not her normal self. She becomes Sasha Fierce, who's afraid of nothing. And there are football players that do it, and like American football players and real football players who basically will strap in and put their helmet on, and then they become a different person because they've got to be that tough, fearless person on the line, or being a goalie or whatever. And so I think that that I think it was called the alter ego effect, but that's basically the gist of that book. And I think that's super helpful to think of, well, what if instead of me being me who's afraid of this or won't do that or thinks they're going to be humiliated, what if I'm this person instead? And I'm just going to be an actor playing the role of that person in this situation. Then it can become a game. It can be fun, and it can help you get past that other stuff because you're literally changing your beliefs and your mannerisms as you move into that other personality, and give yourself some transformational prop, whether it's glasses or a tie or a jacket or a watch, or just like that's something that lets you move into character. I think that can be tremendously effective. So either do what I do and just say, you know what, I don't really care. I don't care if I make money on this. I don't care if this person thinks I'm dumb. I'm just not afraid of it. Or be a person that channels that, that other personality that will help you be the person that you want to be.
Yeah, I love that. I probably spent most of my 20s always worried about what everyone else was thinking about.
Me too. I mean, me too when I was younger, for sure. Now, not so much.
And it's funny what you say there. So I had a fear of public speaking, and I must admit it hasn't completely gone away. But someone gave me that advice, and have a prop that helps. So this was a pen that I bought years ago, which is something that I would take out on stage to help me when I spoke, and it did help without doubt.
That's cool. Isn't that funny? It's
so
we're such weird, interesting creatures, aren't we?
Yeah. Like how does that work? But it somehow did. So we know where you've come from, what you enjoy, what your goals are, what you do outside as well, traveling, wine, music. Totally wasn't expecting the music thing. I don't know why. I love that. Is there one thing that we haven't talked about that you would love the viewers to know about you?
To know about me? I mean, my whole thing is being voraciously curious. So it's like when I think that you really want to be thinking about what's in it for the other people. So I am always focused on what's in it for them, not what's in it for me. And I'm not saying that I'm not thinking about myself and I'm just selflessly out there because I think the most selfish thing you can do is to help other people because it's going to benefit you the most. But I think it's really cool that's the case. And so I just hope that everybody that is seeing or hearing this can think about what is it that they can do now that will help somebody else, and then think forward about if you were to do that, what are all the positive things that can come to you, because there are so many. And if you can just kind of change whatever thought you're having right now, like if you don't have everything that you want right now, I would say it's because you're not helping enough people to get what they want. And I believe that in my absolute core and heart. If you don't have everything that you want right now, it's because you have not yet figured out how to help other people get the things that they want. So if you want to take action that is truly self-interested, then you've got to really look at that and say, what are the things that I can do for these other people? Now, if you need some what's in it for me out of that, then say, and if I do help that person make this thing happen, then it's very likely that this benefit is going to come back to me. That's fine. But it won't always. And so you can't be like mad about it. But it will. And it will enough that it will get you to the place where you do have everything that you want. I know that to be a fact. I've just watched it with myself and so many other people. So like, that's the big takeaway I would like. When you and I, talk and you're like, well, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, I want to talk about whatever your audience wants. Because those are the people right now that are the only people I care about helping. Right. And so in every moment that you're interacting with somebody, that person or that audience, that group has to be the only thing that you care the most about is how can you help them? And if you do that, there's just no way that you don't move miles ahead into everything that you want.
Yeah, I love that. I read a book years ago. I can't remember which book it was now, but it described it as the boomerang effect. And whatever you put out into the world would basically come back at you, but with more force. And I was like, that makes sense. And if you want to have the most loving marriage ever, well, put loads of love into that marriage and you'll probably get it back. And if you want to,
and especially since you said that, I'll tell a quick story. Do you know a guy named Tucker Max by any chance?
No.
Okay, Tucker's a really interesting guy who was very much a let's say womanizer, for lack of a better term. That playboy, I guess maybe would be another way to. But he wrote several books and had a play and a movie and stuff, and was just this what was it? Fraternity satire is a genre that he kind of created in books. And so he'd be talking about all the girls he went out with and, had sex with and blah, 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 blah. And then he decided that he wanted to get married and find a good partner. And so he had a therapist and to help him, just kind of help out with that. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, well, what kind of woman are you looking for? And he's like, well, she has to be this, and like 72 points. And she's like, so the chances that this woman exists are basically nothing, right? You just need to first understand. So let's focus on, a few of the things. Okay, here are the 3 or 5 things that are most important to me. Great. And then she said, so would this woman be attracted to you right now? And he's like, well, of course she would. What do you mean? I'm amazing. And she's like, well, think about it. And he's like, I mean, maybe not. And she said, well, what kind of person would you have to become to attract this type of partner? And he's like, oh, well, I mean, I guess I would need to do this, this, and this. And she said, so the first place that you need to look is, how can you become the person that will attract the type of person that you want? And so I think that applies in all areas of life. He ultimately made major changes and has a wonderful, amazing wife and a whole pile of kids now, and as happy as can be. But he I love the transformation of that, and I love that he'll tell you that story because that's really, I think, what we all need to be thinking about. Not, it's not, what do we want in the business that we want to find in the business owner we want to talk to? How can we be the buyer that person wants to sell their business to? How can we be the advisor that person wants to look to get advice about their business? How can we be the person that they want to give value to because we are able to give them the value they want? And what do we have to do? What steps do we need to take to be that? If we do that, then you'll have so much deal flow you won't know what to do with, because everybody you meet is going to be absolutely falling over themselves to do business with you, whether it's to sell you their business, give you their business, introduce you to somebody, bring you in as an equity partner, hire you as a consultant, right? And that's a pretty wide range of things that we can provide to those people. So that's really important. I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because I think that thinking about that, who do we need to become to be the person that all these people are going to want to be dealing with, is a really important question.
Love that, and eloquently answered. Thank you very much. Michael's got a question here. He says, you've shared the stage with a lot of amazing people. Is there one person you've interviewed or insight you've gleaned that stood out?
That is a good question. I really feel the answer is no. And it's because I have been so blessed to interview so many amazing people. But I will tell you, what I've learned from it was pretty cool, because I didn't really like the personality because of the grind of Gary Vee. But we had Gary speak at he's a friend of mine. We had him speak at one of our events. And I also got to interview him for a couple of podcasts, and I got to have dinner with him. And the first time that he spoke at an event, and we were having dinner in a wine room after, and it's a table that sat like maybe 10 people, and I was down at the head of it and he was at the other end. And my wife said, you got to go down there and talk to him. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to him. I don't really like him. I mean, it's all this grind. It's not my guy, And she's like, you need to go and talk to him. You're going to be rude if you don't. Well, fine, I'll go talk to him. So I go and I sit down, and we start talking, and we connected over wine, because I was like, you're a wine guy. Totally forgot that you were into that, and we're sitting in a room full of it. So let's talk about that. And then we started talking about business and other things. And while I don't agree with the grind and would never want to live the life that he's living, he's a brilliant, sincere, smart, amazing guy that's done so many crazy cool things. And same thing, I wasn't super interested to interview Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then I do my research and I read all about what he's done, and I read his, autobiography, and I read all this other stuff and listen to the interviews, and I'm like, this is an amazing person that's been at the absolute top of the field in politics, acting, and bodybuilding. 3 crazily unrelated things, but got to the to not the top in politics, but pretty daggone near it, running California. And same thing over and over. with people. And so what I've learned from, I am going to get back to what you asked. What I've learned is that while there's no one of those people that stands out as like better or more, that I learn more from than all the rest, what I learned from them collectively is that Martha Stewart isn't just a personality that got lucky and is on stage. She was one of the first stockbrokers in New York back when women were not allowed to be stockbrokers and investment bankers. She was a model for Chanel. She was, again, always going to come out on top. She had the drive and personality. Magic Johnson had the drive and personality. Marcus Lemonis had the drive and personality. Arnold Schwarzenegger did. Richard Branson did. All these people, Cara Golden from Hint, Sarah Blakely from Spanx, they all had that same thing, which is that they constantly moved forward and they were flexible and they were absolutely committed, not interested in success. They were committed to success, not interested in the possibility of it if it happened to happen. And so they're all so many more levels deep than I ever imagined. And I was so shallow and unwise to not see that there's no way that people get to that pinnacle that all of those people have reached without being much, much more than what you see right now. So every level of success that I see now, I don't say, I'm not interested in that person. I don't relate to that person. I'm like, I wonder what it is that they went through and what their journey was to get to where they are and what they learned along the way and what I can learn from them. And I always find something. So now it's definitely not, this was the most interesting or the least interesting. Even Logan Paul, who lots of people have big problems with, it was amazing to hear all the things that he has done and all the places that he had success along the way. And do all of them make mistakes, including me? Yeah. And are some of them giant ones? Absolutely. But it's really fascinating to me to see that common thread throughout everybody that I have talked to.
I love that. Yeah. So it's not that there's one person that stood out, it's everyone stands out in their own way.
Yeah. And there is kind of this archetype of the successful person that they have faced huge adversity multiple times and gone forward. Martha Stewart was doing an interview for a local show and she literally got struck by lightning and ended up going to the hospital after, but she finished the interview. It's over and over and over again. There's, financial devastation, there's physical challenges, but they all persevere through it. And they're absolutely focused. And none of those people have I ever heard say, and what can we get out of these people? It's always, how can they serve the audience that is in front of them that they're trying to help right then? When I talk to most of those people too, it's never, hey, look, I need to hawk my new book. I want you to help me promote my mastermind. It's, what can I do to serve these people? And so if you look at that, it's that archetype, that common thread, that's really, really powerful to be aware of.
Yeah, definitely. I've just finished Arnold Schwarzenegger's latest book, actually. I was at the airport.
Nice.
It kind of spoke to me. I picked it up and it was great. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought I was going to.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Absolutely. A couple more questions if you've got time.
Sure.
Are you doing lots of acquisitions in the UK and Europe?
I have a focus right now in the UK on acquisitions. So we have a few that are in process right there, but it is an area that we are focusing more and more on as we have moved into Europe more definitively. So yes, I have and I am.
Brilliant. What kind of music is your favorite?
I really like most music. I have yet to be sophisticated enough to develop a full appreciation for opera, unfortunately. But because I came up as a keyboard player, I love electronic music. So EDM, is my jam, and pop. So I'll go, from pop like Taylor Swift to, into house and trap and, all of those fun kinds of things.
Brilliant, thank you. Last question then. So in terms of your acquisition, higher debt cost, what's the effect?
I think I understand the question, and they can clarify if they want to, but basically, has the increased cost of debt as a result of increasing interest rates impacted how we acquire? The answer is, for me, it really hasn't that much, because we don't use a lot of debt anymore that is commercial. So we don't use banks really at all. We don't use SBA loans, which is, if you're in the United States, it's a financing thing that's provided by the government, a guarantee. And in seller financing, we seldom pay interest. So because we're generally doing deals with people who have some motivation to sell, not because they're in trouble, because I don't like doing turnarounds. I've done a lot of them, but I want a profitable business that's not got a lot of hassles. I want one that's got a motivated seller that, for whatever reason, is interested in moving to the next level, or is interested in having us involved in being, associated with the business. So when we're doing seller financing, we generally do not offer interest. It's like, what do you want? Let's collaborate, not negotiate, collaborate to figure out how we can get you what you need for this business. What do you need? Well, I need this. Okay, great. What do you want? Well, I want all cash. Awesome. That's probably not going to happen. If you can get it, go do it now. Can you do it? Can you get it? No. Okay. Or yeah, I think I can. Then it's like, okay, well, you go try that. And then when you can't, because you probably won't, but if you do, I love you and I'm happy for you. But if you can't, then come back and let's talk. Most of them come back, right? And then they're flexible. Great. So now that they're flexible, maybe flexible is better than motivated, but they're flexible and or motivated. So now, how am I going to finance the business? Well, I'm going to use an earnout. I'm not going to have to pay interest on the earnout, right? That's going to be some event that's got to happen to guarantee that they're going to get some portion of the purchase price, usually 10 to 40%, usually over 1 to 4 years. There's no interest involved in that. I'm going to use seller financing, but my seller financing offer is going to be based, really the interest is going to be baked into the price. So they're going to say, I want 100,000 for this. Great. You want 100,000 pounds for this business? Fantastic. Let's do 20% as an earnout, and let's do 80% as seller financing. So let's finance 80,000 pounds. Give me a note, and I'll give you 80,000 pounds 5 years from now. Oh no, I can't do that. I have to have some amount over every year, and I could only do 4 years. Great. Well, now I've got 4 years, even though I didn't get my 5. Okay, so you need what, 20,000 pounds a year for 4 years? Yeah. Okay, great. I'll give you 20,000 pounds for a year for 4 years. That's my offer plus the earnout. What do you think? I love it. Great. Sign, done. Okay. No interest. Didn't cost me. Now let's say that the fallback is, no, well, I'm going to have interest on that money too. I say, well, I gave you your purchase price, so I expect that you're going to not charge me interest because I gave you your purchase price. I'm going to give you 100,000 pounds. That's what you said you wanted, right? That's what you need. We've done it. You said you need it. You need it over 4 years. We worked on that. So that's what I'm going to give you. Now, I'll tell you, most times they don't ask for that. They don't ask for the interest, right? But if they did, then I would get to talking about the interest. If I'm going to pay interest, it's going to probably be at the risk-free rate, which is higher now by about double than it used to be. So maybe it would cost me twice as much. Let's say that the risk-free rate is 6% now, and that it used to be 3%, meaning what somebody could just put money in a bank and expect to get. Okay, great. If now that cost of interest has doubled, then it's probably going to come off the purchase price. And in my conversation with them, I'm probably going to say, well, I mean, look, I can give you interest, but I can't give you 20,000 pounds a year for 4 years plus interest plus the earnout. So I can give you 16,000 pounds a year, and I can give you 8% interest. It's going to be that conversation. So I haven't really seen it affect me. If I'm using accounts receivable to factor, then my factor might be effectively lower. I might get less for selling those accounts receivable than I could get before because the interest rate's higher, but it's all going to be baked into the deal. So it's not like I can't do deals because now I can't get mezzanine debt at 3%. which is really what you're hearing from the M&A world, right? That debt is either not available, so I can't do deals, or it's so expensive that I can't afford to do the deals. But expensive should always just really effectively drive the purchase price of businesses lower, because it costs more to acquire. So naturally, they're going to pay less to adjust for that risk. So a lot of what we see, like what we read about how this is adversely impacting, I think is just because the mezz debt's not there. And so mid-market M&A has been affected by that.
Yeah. And Paul says on that note, are you finding that strategy is working in the UK and Europe as well?
Yes.
And Roderick says, one final question. This is it now. Do you have a search fund set up?
No, I don't like search funds. So if you think about the way that the traditional search fund is done, it is you're going to raise capital from investors, and then they're going to pay you a pittance while you're looking for your deal. And then when you get your deal, they're going to fund the deal, and you're going to be beholden to them, and you're going to have to answer to them, and they're going to kind of dictate the terms of the deal, and you're going to have to pay them back, and they're going to get a lot of the benefit of what you're getting when you buy. I don't like that. I don't use venture capital. I don't use growth funds, and I don't use search funds because of that. I really generally try not to have investors in deals. I think that normally I can put together a creative financing using the assets of the company with all my old LBO tricks and all of the third parties who I can show reasons why they should do something for the company. Why should the supplier give me 90-day or 120-day terms instead of the cash on demand that they've got right now? Why should this employee take an interest in the business and invest in the business? Now, those employee investors I like. Why should the seller benefit from a finance structure that's going to mean that they've got a note that's earning them almost twice as much as they could get than if I gave them cash and they invested the money, because they don't pay taxes on the money until the money is received on an installment basis. So they've got twice as much money earning than if they pay taxes. There's there's so many reasons and strategies that that you can use that I just don't think you need to have those investors. So I'm not a big fan of the search fund.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And that's probably, we could probably go on all day actually, but we'll draw it to a close. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Where do people reach out to you if they've got a deal, they want to share it with you and get your thoughts, or for any other reason, joining your mastermind, for instance?
Sure. So we have a site, epicnetwork.com. That is really the kind of the hub for all of our things. I have a podcast also called Business Lunch, which we should probably get you on. We should talk about that, where we talk about all this kind of stuff. And I have that 5-day challenge at getepicchallenge.com, which is free. If like, to me, you should definitely go through that. I don't care if you get anything from me or not after, and you don't have to. It is a better course, I think, than $2,000 and $3,000 and $5,000 courses that I see out there, and it costs nothing. And we really go over all of these cool, all these key things and give you tools. And then, of course, I've got a couple of books. I've got Consulting for Equity and Zero Down, and one I did with Jay Abraham called Business Wealth Without Risk, that Tony Robbins wrote the intro for, and Damon John. So those are all places you can connect with me. I'm also on all the social media at /Roland Frasier. So happy to see you on any of those platforms.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I shall let you get back to your day, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you. Thanks.